Today, on this episode of Weapons Wednesday, we have a bit of a competition on our hands. I was sent several throwing weapons to see which one is the absolute best. The Batwing Shurikens, the Silver Ninja Stars, the Black Kunai throwing knife, and the Blackjack throwing cards. Now, I will be considering a couple different qualities in the contest to see which one is actually the best. How nice and well built they are, the challenge level for throwing them, the gimmicky style of it, or in turn the non-gimmicky style, just the style in general, and my opinions on the matter. But before we get started, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, that would be awesome. On the last episode of Weapons Wednesday, I asked you what old school weapon you thought would be the most effective in today's day and age. And finally, the votes are in, and with 45% of that vote, the winner that you chose is the Atomic Expandable Baton. And if you want to get this awesome self-defense weapon for yourself, just go to KarateMart.com and get it sent straight to you, along with any of the other weapons you see in this video. And as always, check your local laws to make sure we're all safe and not doing anything wrong getting these weapons. However, with this week's poll, I wanted to be a little more different. I wanted you to let me know which of today's throwing weapons you would vote to be the absolute best one in whatever category you believe is most important. So as always, make sure to go to the community poll and cast your vote. But first, obviously, we have to go over all four of today's weapons. First, we're going to be starting off with the Batwing Shurikens. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, this is going to hit for any of my comic fans out there for, well, obvious reasons. Because they're the weapon that they need, but not the one they deserve. But just looking cool is not enough to be the absolute best. We need to find out what actually is under the red hood of these guys. I'm sorry, that was a horrible Batman pun. These two Bat Shurikens come in a really nice nylon case. The nylon keeps the weapons protected and secured while in the case, and the belt loop on the back makes it easy to attach to anyone's utility belt. But back to the weapons themselves, they look super stylish with that black finish. And personally, that's what really sells the look of these guys. I mean, I've seen lots of different styles of bat wing throwing knives, and you know, I've seen colorful ones, blue ones, red ones, multicolored ones, but the black just stands out to be iconic for me. It also comes out of the box sharp with the wing tips and the edges able to stick much easier than if it was just the tips that were sharp. And that makes it really easy for beginners to feel like a superhero immediately after they got these sent to them. They are going to weigh about 2 ounces each as well, which is another thing that I really like. And coming in at about 6 inches long and about 2 inches from ear to tail, it honestly just feels like it should. I just remember me and my little brother running around the house acting like we were throwing ninja stars or throwing batarangs at each other, pretending like we were superheroes. And this just feels exactly how I wanted it to feel when I was a kid. And so it really brings me back to those times. And overall, I really like how these two shake down, and I'm incredibly excited to throw them in the test at the end of this video. For our second contender, we have the Silver Ninja Star set. You truly can't beat the classic design of the Ninja Star. Well, at least the most popular design of the Ninja Star. Traditionally, throwing stars had no standard style, but that you get my point. And if you want me to go into more of the history of the traditional Ninja Star, then let me know in the comments down below. But this set comes with 4 5-point throwing stars that are absolutely fantastic for anyone that's wanting to add a throwing weapon into their arsenal. They are made out of 1065 German surgical steel, and for those of you that don't care to keep up with all the nuances of the different metals, I really can't blame you for one. There is way too much to keep up with. But long story short, this steel is going to be quite tough, which is nice if you are going to be throwing them often. It will also keep the edge fairly well, and more importantly, at least in my opinion, it's easy to resharpen, making it great for anyone who's just wanting to get into knife throwing and knife sharpening alike. It's one of those that experience isn't necessarily required. And this is just my personal opinion, the 5 points make it much easier to stick into most targets, especially if you're new to throwing. The design of these guys is also quite nice. It comes in at about 4 inches in diameter and 2.2 ounces each. Nothing too special until you look just a little bit closer. They are laser etched with kanji into the stars, which you cannot deny looks awesome and is always a great addition to any weapon. These stars are also going to come with a really nice nylon case as well. Most of these weapons do come with nylon simply because it's really strong and will allow you to be cut or poked while carrying these weapons. This case in particular folds in and actually has button clips to keep it secured when it's on your waist using the belt strap. And again, having a belt strap on Ninja Stars really allows you to carry them easily to wherever you plan on throwing them. Whether you're throwing them in your backyard, in the woods, or in your house just like I do, it makes it really easy. And like every other weapon in this list, make sure to check your local laws. Throwing knives are not legal everywhere, so make sure to double check just in case so that you're being on the safe side of things. But before we jump into the last 2 weapons on this list, I just want to remind you to vote on your favorite one of these in the community tab or in the comments down below. Next, we have the black kunai throwing knife set. These stand out to me personally because I am, quite honestly, a huge anime fan. And they have become iconic in the anime community due to some of the most popular shows. But they are just as solid in the real world as well. And just like before, they come in a nice nylon case to keep them safe and keep you from stabbing yourself because these cases are incredibly tough. And they also come with a belt strap and Velcro harness to keep the weapons in them and attached to your hip. No problem. That way you could really get into that ninja aesthetic, being able to run, roll, and dive anywhere and then just pop out of one of the kunai and throw them at your target. And inside the case, you're going to see 3 stainless steel kunai with a really nice black finish. And when you look really closely, you can even see markings etched into the blade of the kunai. Honestly, my favorite thing about these guys is how sleek they look. The black nylon cord wrapped around the handles really brings it all together design-wise. Plus, I'm just a fan of nylon cord wraps for throwing weapons. It feels really nice in your hands and allows for serious grip until you're ready to release your throwing weapon. And keeps the sweat away so your weapon doesn't feel sticky to your hand if your hands happen to be somewhat sweaty. Because trust me, feeling like the weapon will stick to your hand when you let go of it is not a fun feeling. And it comes out of the box with incredibly sharp points and sharp edges, making it easier to stick into the objects that you're throwing at, whether that be foam targets, cardboard boxes, wall mats like you'll see me do in just a second, or a tree outside. They're also a really good size as well, weighing in at about 1.5 ounces, making each of these stick into objects that much easier because the weight you add into them, and they feel really solid in your hand before you throw them. It's also going to have about 3¼ inch of blade, and out of 5 overall inches, that makes it mostly blade, which makes it even easier to stick into your target even more. And for those of us with small to medium-sized hands, along with a long range, this also allows you to use these to make holes in your enemy in close quarters, being able to use them as daggers for self-defense, in any, close quarters range. And since there's 3 of them, you have 1 extra to be able to throw at a target and then still have 2 to fight with close range. And to be honest, I love the idea of just using one, throwing it at one guy, running up, and using the other 2 close quarters. That is just a wild thought in my brain. Maybe I should do like a fight scene with it. Just let me know if you guys liked the last fight scene I did and want to see more of those in the comments. But all in all, they really do remind me of some of my favorite anime shows out there, and overall this is a really good contender for this contest. But we have one last contestant to see which one of these throwing weapons is the absolute best. Lastly, we have the Blackjack throwing cards. These guys have a unique style all to themselves. But just like many of the other weapons on this list, they come in a nice nylon throwing case to keep, again, yourself from cutting or poking yourself while carrying them and keep them secured and safe. Now, this nylon case in particular has a Velcro to hold it together when you open it all. Obviously, the weapons are not in here right now, but that's how they look. So you can open it up and see all your cards just looking straight at you. And when closed, you can take advantage of the belt loop. Oop, I can't get my finger in there. Of the belt loop again to keep it strapped to your hip whenever you're traveling with it, or just wanting to carry it with you further down the woods to where you're going to throw them. But the case is by no means what makes these things look cool, but that is the fact that they're going to be steel throwing cards that you would see in like a deck of throwing cards. And you can't tell me that throwing steel throwing cards into somebody doesn't make you feel like a James Bond villain. It almost belongs in the last video talking about mafia weapons. But the batch comes with 5 different cards: the ace, the king, the queen, the jack, and the 10. All of them being spades. And I really can't get enough of how this episode is making my nerd meter skyrocket, because I just feel like Gambit from X-Men throwing his explosive throwing cards in that show. Now, one of the downsides of these cards is that they're actually just one-sided, with the back being just pure white, lacking any playing card detail. It would be really nice if it was on both sides, but you know, such is life. They come with sharp corners and sides ready to be thrown out of the box immediately as you get them, making you feel like some kind of superhero or James Bond villain right out the box. And just so you know, they are going to be 3.5 inches by 2 inches. Not the exact size of standard playing cards, so you aren't going to be able to hide this in a normal stack of cards. And the weight as well would be a dead giveaway, coming in at about 1.3 ounces. It is clearly not the same as a standard playing card, but maybe that's not a downside and more of a safety feature. I wouldn't want anyone to think this was a throwing card and cut themselves or poke themselves by accident, and really, with how they are, that's just not gonna happen. But it's time for the throwing part of this contest, so let's go to my throwing range and see which one is truly the best, and I'll also give you my final thoughts on which one is the absolute best of all 4 weapons. Now we're getting into our testing. Now for our testing, I'm just gonna let you guys know a couple things. One, I am not the best knife thrower in the world, but I'm not the worst. I'm going to be kind of a middle ground knife thrower and star thrower. So if you're just getting started, you may have a little harder time than me throwing these weapons. And if you've been throwing for decades, then you may have a little bit of easier time than me. So I'm going to be right around middle, which I view as a good thing. I'm also going to be using my setup right here, which is made of mats that are kind of like the floor mats inside of a martial arts school. Not the puzzle mats, but more thicker floor mats. These are great for my indoor setup. I have some on the wall and the back to catch the stars. They're like layered up so that no matter pretty much how hard I throw, I'm not gonna go straight through them into my wall. Now with that said, that means if you're gonna be using something softer like foam targets or cardboard, you might have an easier time sticking into your target. And if you're using something a little harder like solid wood or a tree, you might have a little harder time sticking into your target. Now with that said, let's go through the weapons that we're gonna be testing today in order of the way that we talked them, starting off with our bat wings. Now, I really do like these bat wings. They are super cool, but I really want to focus on throwing them in 2 different ways: ears first and wing or tip first, tail first, whatever you want to call it. So starting off tail end first, we're going to give it a couple good throws. And then going tip in first or ear in first, we're going to give it a couple good throws. So in my opinion, these are really cool. They're going to be about medium level for throws. You're going to be able to stick just like like you would see it in the comics. If you do throw it, typically at the range I'm at, if you throw it ear in first, it'll stick in kind of like that iconic, if you will. But it does stick really well in both ways, and it was even able, I don't know if I'll be able to catch it on camera, but it was even able to stick blade in completely flat a couple times. So it definitely does come sharp. However, it is really sharp, so you're gonna have to be careful. When I was testing these, one of these, I don't even know if I got it on camera, the actual the actual like tip, I don't know if you can see this very well, but the tip actually bent a little bit. And again, it's not hard to straighten it out with a mallet or a piece of wood that you can ply it on. But when throwing, you're going to want to be careful so you don't cut your finger as you release your weapon. But overall, I'm going to say I really like these ones, and let's see what the next set has. Next, we have our 5-point throwing stars, and we're going to give them a couple good throws to see how easy it is to stick, and if, you know, these are actually really good. So these stars are really nice. They were super easy to stick into the target pretty much every time I throw them. As long as you keep the aim or the lineup correct, you can pretty much stick them every time. This really makes them perfect for anyone who is trying to just get started and is a beginner into throwing, because you can really just stick it every time as long as you're focused and on your line. They really aren't anything super special simply because, I mean, they're just 5-point throwing stars. They don't have any gimmick or any cool design or any uniqueness to them in that way. But they're super great if you just want to have something that you can wake up every morning, throw a couple times, and move on with your day. That's a perfect choice for you. Next, we have our black kunai, and like I said before, this really gives me that anime feel. So let's see how good it is from my range. I'm going to be throwing both this direction and holding the blade just to see how good I can get them to stick in my target. My feeling is I'm going to be able to stick it holding the blade, but we're going to find out. Now, I really do like these bad boys right here. They were sticking super easily into the target pretty much every time I was throwing them, and I was right. You do, for my distance and my rotation speed, I have to hold it by the blade at this distance, and obviously if you were farther back or closer, you'd have to change that. But that goes into my point about what kind of is the drawback compared to like the previous one we did, is that this does require some skill and knowledge of throwing. This is not quite as much as a beginner as the stars or even the bat wings would be, because this only has one side that's going to stick into your target. You're not going to really stick this round part into your target unless maybe you really throw it into some cardboard, simply because it's not a blade back here. It's not designed to be that. And that's just how kunai are in general. They're not designed to be beginner weapons necessarily. You need to know your distance, you need to know your rotation in order to make these stick into the target every time. But I still personally love it because this is just something that I've learned. I know my distance in my personal throwing area because I've been throwing in this area for over a year and a half now. And so I'm super comfortable hitting that target pretty much every time with these throwing kunai. But before I give you my final rating, let's go into the last of the weapons, the throwing cards. Now, these throwing cards are really nice, and personally, from aesthetic reasons, they're my favorite so far. But I'm not sure these are going to be that great yet when it goes to actually throwing your weapons. I think if you have a foam target or something like that, you're going to have a lot more of an easier time. But I think they'll do damage, but I don't know if they'll stick simply because of how the weight is distributed. They might even cut into it and then fall out just because of how the weight is distributed. So let's find out. Yeah, like I said, I really wasn't able to get these to stick simply because of, I think, how they're shaped, because of how flat they are and the angle that each of the point is. It's only a 90-degree angle as opposed to the other weapons, which were much pointier. And for the pointier stars and throwing weapons, it's much easier to stick. With this, you need a lot more power, and from inside my throwing area in my house, I'm not really able to give it what it needs to really stick into the target. Now, could you theoretically still stick these? And if you hit someone with these, would it do damage? Absolutely. I would hate to get hit with this in my hand. That would go straight into something fleshy like a hand. However, for a throwing target like the one you see me using here, it's not really going to do the exact same. It's not going to perform the same as the other weapons on this list, but that by no means makes these bad. I still absolutely love them from design and all that that I talked about earlier. Now, for my absolute favorite, who I think wins the contest, and again, before I let you know, I would love for you to go down in the comments below and type what you think, or which weapon you think is the winner of today's contest. Really, I'll give you a second. I don't want to change your vote or affect your vote at all. So go down there, type it up, and share it out. Just let me know what you think, and even if you just think I will pick the right one. Okay, you got it? Sounds great. Now, I believe the Kunai are the best weapon of these weapons, and here's why. On the design front, it isn't super gimmicky like the cards and the bat wings. Like, don't get me wrong, I love those, but it still does touch that nerd in me, that the gimmicky lover in me, with the anime taste and anime touches that this Kunai has. I mean, it's in so many, and it just really touches that for me. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe the Batwing and throwing cards both beat it on a gimmicky level, but this is just such a good one to have. And when combined with the fact that that is really easy to throw, if you know how knives work at all, you will have no issue throwing these knives and sticking them into their target. It is much easier to stick than the throwing cards, and it's not as easy to stick as the ninja stars, like the 5-point stars, but it definitely beats it out in pretty much the other categories. And the last thing that I really think puts this over the other weapons in this contest is its ability to be used as melee knives as well. They have the finger holes and the handle that you can actually use them to defend yourself and to attack someone if necessary, if you were in a position where you needed to. And with the pack coming with 3, you are able to throw them at your target and then still be able to use the other 2 as self-defense weapons, giving you both range and close quarters combat. And because of all 3 of these things, I give the Kunai as the winner of this contest. And of course, if you like this contest and want to see me do more contests like this, let me know. Hit the like, and that's kind of how I can tell that you really enjoyed this type of format. Like I said, don't forget to vote in the community tab to cast your vote on which one of these weapons you think should have won the contest, or letting me know why you think you agree with me in my ratings. And in the comments, I would really love for you to rank all 4 of these in whatever order you think they should be in, from best to worst. Because maybe you're a fan of the classics and think the classic Shuriken Ninja Star needs to be right at the top. Or you're a comic fan and really into those bat wings. I can't wait to read what you guys think, and as always, the links to any of these weapons will be in the description of this video or just at KarateMart.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name's DJ, the Modern Ninja, and I'll see you guys Weapons Wednesday. This is DJ just before I finish editing the video, but I just want to let you guys know, here's a sneak peek at what you can see coming for the next Weapons Wednesday. Get closer, get closer.